Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
Greetings, gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. I'm Scott McKay, at Scott McKay, just about everywhere on X, on YouTube, sometimes on TikTok. If you are on Instagram, I'm at Real Scott McKay. The home of the podcast on the web is mountaintoppodcast.com. As always, lots of free stuff to download for you there, plus show notes on every show we've ever done, pretty much. It's still up on Apple Podcasts at this time. And if you have not joined the Facebook group, it is the Mountaintop Summit, as always, on Facebook. My returning guest is none other than Susan Winter herself, dating coach extraordinaire. Welcome back, Susan.
Hey, Scott. How are you? Good to be back.
Yeah, it is good for you to be back because the guys love you. You're very smart.
You.
Yeah, you're one of those dating coaches who has been around the block and has had time to become really super competent at this. And I'll tell you what, the favorite guests of the audience of this show are not only women, because we tend to have more interesting conversations between us, you know, and also guests who know their stuff, right? And you are certainly that person. And the topic we have today is a really good one. It's one that's been on my radar screen for a while. And sometimes I'll say this on a show, and every time I mention it, I am telling the truth. I have these topics that I want to cover, but I can't find the right guest. And I think about it and I think about it. And finally it occurs to me, the right expert to have on. And you are the right one for this. What we're talking about today, Susan, of course, for the benefit of the audience listening, is the difference between one night stand material and relationship material. And of course, anything in between. And to get things kicked off, Susan, you know, I think a lot of times men and women both kind of carry this stereotype around in their back pocket that men are just trying to get laid. They're just trying to tag as much poontang as they can. And that women are trying to lock down every guy they go out on a first date with into being her next husband, right? Or her future ex-husband, right? What's up with that stereotype? Because in the real world, maybe not, right?
Well, it's not inaccurate. Stereotypes don't come out of nowhere.
True.
Generally speaking, guys like to get laid. Generally speaking, women like to be honored. Now, that's the difference. They don't necessarily want a husband, but they want to be treated with respect. So they might prefer to go into a box that gives them some kind of respect and dignity.
I understand that. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate for men too, though, Susan. I mean, men want to be a hero to women and they just want to be appreciated. I mean, every time I talk.
That's a huge discussion, Scott. Women don't know how to do that anymore. And then they complain that the men are no good. This is enormous.
Yeah, I mean, we have on both sides of the gender ledger here. Some people would argue there are multiple facets to that ledger, but, you know, for the sake of our generally heterocentrist audience here, on both sides of the male-female ledger, you have a massive lack of appreciation for the needs of the other gender, and everybody want to hit that easy button and get their needs met in a relationship without much regard for someone else being part of that relationship. I think that much is pretty well documented on this show. You're absolutely right. But I do believe that men in particular want to be a hero to women and just want the woman to go, "You're amazing. Thank you." Instead of, that wasn't enough. Do more, do better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I hammer my people over the head with that one. I tell women, I cannot tell you how many times I've been with a client and she's bitching and complaining about her husband. And I said, do you want a better response with this man? I said, what did he do right? She goes, oh, but he does all this wrong. I said, so no, what did he do right? Well, he actually cleaned the garage this weekend. I said, did you thank him? She goes, no, because he should do that. I said, who said that? I said, I want you to do me. I said, give me a week. Do this experiment. Everything he does, notice it for yourself. That's your peace of mind. And then thank him, because it is, forgive me for saying this, large animal training. Okay.
Oh, these guys love you already.
It is.
Susan.
It's large animal training. If I want my dog to come, I say, come, Nika, come. And I have a treat. We all want a treat. a treat of admiration, a treat of appreciation, and we are incentivized by the appreciation that we get, and especially verbal response. You know, to give a verbal affirmation, honey, thank you so much. That really helped me out. You know, that your guys are like, men are these beautiful creatures. They're like a hero on a horse, just looking for somebody to save. And half the women go, hey, I got it on my own. Don't even bother. That's offensive. And then they wonder why they're not feeling loved and adored. So I do understand it goes both ways, and I'm not against women, but I so understand and appreciate men. And it is hard for us to have to be independent. You know, we had to massively transform in the 80s and become men, and now we have to lighten up a little bit and let men help us. But it is true that when either one of us are appreciated for what we do. You thank the lady for cooking. You thank her for, I don't know, doing your laundry, doing like calling you at work and asking you how you're doing when you're having a rough day, whatever, giving you a kiss. We all need that. And without that, we don't have much incentive to keep doing the nice things.
You know, everything you're talking about, Susan, is just so much fun to listen to. And I think the guys would agree, coming from the viewpoint of a woman. And it's refreshing to hear. I think actually most of us in this world, apart from those of us who are grabbing the mic angrily on social media and trying to build a soapbox under our anger, right, are really happy to be men and happy to be women and are hoping to get along and find someone cool to hang out with. Yeah. And yet, when you said that women just want to be honored, even though I came back with, hey, yeah, you know what, us too, as men, I know exactly what you're saying. Women know they're sexually attractive to a lot of guys. Most women understand that most men will stick their dick in anything with a skirt. They know that. Okay. They want to be appreciated. They want to be a unique humanoid to the man who's approaching them and talking to them. They just don't want to be another notch on his bedpost. And what I tell guys on this show, this is for your benefit, Susan, because you haven't heard every episode we've ever done, of course, and I don't expect you to. A lot of times a recurring theme around here is, you know what? We as men, if we have a lot of money, we don't want to be seen as a walking ATM machine. So really, this is a human condition where we just don't want to be used for something really superficial. We want someone to come along and appreciate us holistically. And this seems to be more and more difficult for a lot of people because we've built a culture, especially during COVID, where we were isolated and we were dependent on social media to be quote unquote social, where we've gotten comfortable meeting our own needs without really having to be bothered with the needs of anybody else. And here we are with a need to be in community with another human being. And some of us are actually falling for this AI girlfriend BS, where she'll basically bark like a dog at your whim, but she's not real. She doesn't have any actual human agency. She can't even really love you. And, you know, for goodness sakes, she doesn't even have a real vagina to satisfy you with. And this is what a lot of people are turning to, and it's really sad. So that brings us back to our topic, which is the whole idea of the nature of relationships, I guess from how short or long term they are. That's the real focus of today's episode. And I love where we've taken this so far, kind of giving that underlying foundation of what people's psychological states are and what their needs are. And it's really no wonder that people have a hard time differentiating between someone I should be in a long-term relationship with versus someone who really just makes me horny and I want to use for a masturbation tool for a night. It's really strange how people lose any sense of differentiation there, isn't it?
Well, we have a lot of social pressure. And let me back this up a little bit. You have to understand that previous to the last 100 years, women had no rights. The first woman ever got a credit card in her own name in the 1960s, not her husband's name. So a woman's fate was tied to a man. Now, today, women make money, so they should utilize that resource to choose the man they want, not like, oh, I want him for his money. Instagram has been a huge pollutant. And the messaging that we're seeing about the woman going after the guy for the money and manipulating him and all the girls moving to New York City to date only private equity guys, where the private equity guys go, I ask guys. I remember I had a bunch of financial service guys. They were all blowing coke in a bathroom. And I went in there and sat down, put down the toilet. And I said, why do you screw these women and dump them? And they said, they're going to do it to us. And I said, fair, because I need to know. So I've done all sorts of research with this. We are still human beings who want to be loved and honored and respected. And the difference between a one-night stand and somebody that is worth your time and investment is totally dependent upon how they show up. I have a rather controversial position. I had to date bad boys for 6 years, Scott. I had no information about players, games, or not being honored and respected. I was the girl trying to avoid getting married my whole life. I had long-term committed boyfriends. I didn't know what it was like to be played. I didn't know what it was like to have a one-night stand. I was that girl you looked at and it just went marriage material. And guess what? I didn't want any of it. Okay. Very odd, but great information for today. So what I can tell you is a woman could be the kind of person and show up as a human being that sees you, respects you, and sees you beyond what she's going to get out of it. And you could still have an enjoyable, agreeable, respectful, short-term love affair or relationship. You can have a wonderful experience with somebody who knows the rules of being a human being in a weekend. And maybe it doesn't go beyond that. But if you want more than that, every guy knows. He can tell within the first 5 minutes, come on. Is she marriage material? Or is she somebody I just take for the night? It's a vibe. It is who she is and how she shows up.
Describe. Talk to me about that vibe.
Okay.
What's the difference between one vibe and the other? Well, give it a shot. I'll chime in if I have to.
We have the same thing. Not too deep, not self-reflective, seriously insecure, therefore arrogant and conceited, thoughtless, cruel, values herself, a little narcissistic. That's a hit and run because there's nothing there.
You better not get her pregnant.
Oh, every man should protect his assets and make sure that he covers his business. Assets, yes. Yes, cover your assets.
CYA, cover your assets.
Oh, no. And the same is true with guys. I always tell women, beware of the guy that walks up to the bar and he's so slick and he's so charismatic, because they know that game because they practiced it 1,000 times. You want the guy that's a little nervous. It's a high stake event. He's got, skin in the game. He's not good at this because he's actually a real person. The only people nowadays, as far as guys go, that we see chronically that know how to engage our attention and prove that they like us are either scam artists or players. Regular guys have been so terrified as to what do I do? How do I do it? Is she like it? Does she not like it? Is this too much? Is this too little? Oh, don't approach them. Make them pursue you. So the men have been so screwed up that the women take over. We don't want to take over. The whole thing's a bit of a mess.
Well, a lot of women report that they can't comprehend a man being scared of her or nervous. And yet it's the guys who want to do the right thing and really value women enough to have some nervous energy at the prospect of talking to one, meeting one who they might really like, especially for the long term, who have the hardest time talking to women. And yet women don't see that. They don't recognize that. So it's the players and these bad boys who are used to hitting on chicks all the time, who get all the action. Yeah. And women are disappointed when he doesn't turn out to be relationship material. Now,
like they're surprised. I mean, we've been telling them over and over again, you're good at what you practice, right? They're great at the pickup. That's all they know.
But check this out. Really, if I were to give an elevator pitch to you or anyone else about what X and Y Communications does, most commonly we're known for and what we do best, it would be taking these really good men of character and giving them facility with women. The kind of charm and attractiveness and confidence with women that they need to demonstrate to women that, yes, okay, they know how to be masculine, they know how to be attractive, they're going to step up and approach them. But at the same time, voila, here's a guy who's actually relationship material. And that's how a guy transforms from being a chaser, hoping a woman doesn't quote unquote reject him, to a guy who suddenly goes out and builds a world where he has choice with women. And so many of these guys have faced rejection, looked at in the teeth so many times and been hurt by it that they just really don't see that as even being possible. And Susan, that's my biggest challenge, is helping men out there, maybe a lot of the men listening to this very episode, realize, look, if you get over your fear of women, if you're charming, if you know how to be attractive, if you put your best, well, let's use the same term we've been using, assets forward, women aren't going to reject you. It's not like they're not going to want you. Au contraire, they're going to adore you. When they see you as a guy who actually has character, they're all going to want you, and they're going to want to keep you, and it's going to be the highest quality woman problem you've ever had, instead of a bunch of crazy women who are trying to use you.
Yeah, okay, this is absolutely correct, and that is the right training. But here is what is required of the woman.
Okay, yes.
Okay, and here's the filter that I want your guys to remember. She has to be ready to understand what a good guy is.
For sure.
And there is an arc to a woman, and I call it sharpening her claws of confidence. In her 20s, she's sleeping with guys. She wants the wild horse. Every girl wants to tame that wild horse. It's just like it's part of her learning curve. She needs to be hurt a little. She needs reality a little. She needs to be down and go, oh my God, what have I done? Before she can recognize a quality man.
Well, that's a generalization.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, not every woman is going to follow that arc.
Some inherently know that, but most do not nowadays, the way they're being programmed to date for an end result of an Instagram lifestyle.
Well, let me ask you this question. How much do you think that has to do with how relationships were modeled and how manhood was modeled as a child?
Some people are lucky. They come from a healthy family and they understand what it takes and what they should be feeling when they meet a person. So may I just digress for just a moment and talk about some of the filters I'd love to have your men understand to know that they're on the right track to a good woman. Would you be agreeable to that?
Of course.
Okay. So first of all, you're looking for her internal qualities. The very first question I'd like your guys to say, as you look at this woman, do you respect her and do you admire her?
This is for long-term relationship material.
Yeah. It's for any kind of quality. I don't care if you want a short-term relationship. It just means you've got something there of substance that you can work with.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Do you respect and admire her? Is she a woman? Does she have internal qualities that you like? Is she thoughtful? Is she kind? Does she seem like she's polite and respectful to people around her? Those are good qualities to have. That means you've got a human you can actually work with. You can go into a negotiation. Then you can design whatever you want to create with her according to what she wants, according to what you want. It can even be flexible and fluid. Let's start. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I might want one, but it gives you a good starting point. And then also, how do you feel in her presence? How do you feel about yourself? Are you comfortable? Are you calm? Do you feel safe? Or do you feel like you're always trying to prove yourself? Are you always like not good enough? She's putting you through hoops. That's not cool. That's not somebody you want for anything.
For anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get really practical here. I agree with everything you've said. I also think that you have to have the same core values. If we don't know what our belief system is, if we don't know what the hell we believe or who the hell we are, then we don't know who the hell we're looking for. We've talked about that. That's well documented. That's all long-term relationship prep. Okay.
Yep.
Let's talk about the one-night stands.
Okay.
All right. First of all, I'm not alone when I say this. I've talked to a lot of guys. I've talked to a lot of women. I don't like the whole idea of one-night stands because if I am horny for someone, I don't want to test drive that Lamborghini and give it back to the dealership. I'm going to want to get better at that. I'm going to want a little more. I'm going to want it again and again and again, right? Even if it's purely from the sexual perspective, I am not interested in a drunken sample, a drunken test drive. And I know I'm not alone. I think it's a certain personality type and perhaps a dysfunctional one, right? Who needs this steady stream of one night stands. And I know everybody I've ever talked to who fell into that lifestyle. And listen, I'm not being judgmental. I'm talking about objective reality. People I've talked to and how it turns out for them. It gets empty for them very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. Right? That said, when I was traveling a lot in my sales position and I was single and I started getting really good at online dating, I started doing the chick in every port thing, right? Where, it's a military term where, sailors have a different woman every port they call on, right?
Correct.
Mostly because I didn't want to just hang out in the hotel and do nothing when I was traveling on business. And it was very easy to get women in other metro areas to go out with me. Now, here's the thing, and I'll give a specific example. One night, I went out with this little gal who worked in marketing for Sun Microsystems, who was exactly what I like. Oh, my goodness. And she was a little exotic. She was a little different than the kind of woman I would usually date socially, culturally. But in terms of her appearance, how she was put together, her personality type, how her femininity was portrayed, I could have fallen for her really, really deeply. Okay? And sure enough, things started getting a little frisky because, she felt the same way about me, I guess. We were getting along, and when people get along, it takes two, right?
Right.
And we started getting a little frisky, a little handsy, and she wanted to go back to the hotel, and I put the kibosh on it because it was California. I live in Texas. I do not want a long-term relationship with someone in California. But I also didn't go through with the one-night stand, right, and get a piece so I could have a pleasant memory of it because I did value her. I did value my own emotions, and I just didn't want to get all wrapped up in that. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe that makes me a little more quote-unquote tender-hearted or something than some other dude out there, and I'm sure a lot of guys will hammer me for it. But then again, I also had options. It wasn't like this was the first woman I'd been out with and played kissy face with in like 3 years or something. I had 4 or 5, waiting for me at home. And I know a lot of guys get frustrated hearing that, but I was able to make a level-headed decision because of the options I had.
You had an assessment according to how you felt at the time.
Right. If she lived in San Antonio, Texas, and this wasn't going to be a long-distance relationship thing, man, we would have probably, gone for it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, there are also women I've dated here in San Antonio, Texas, and our intentions were there, okay, for there to be maybe something a little bit longer term, not marriage, but something that we're going to need to talk about a little bit, which is the whole friends with benefits thing, right? Or, people who like each other and who relate to each other very well. They're horny for each other. They're good for each other in that time, in that place, and in that dimension at that point in history, but there's no way in hell they're going to be long-term marriage material for each other. Okay, that's something we have to discuss here because that's the whole middle ground that a lot of people don't even consider.
Correct.
But she probably would have fit that category had she lived in San Antonio. So I fly home from San Antonio after I wish her, make sure she got home safely, et cetera, et cetera. And frankly, I just don't ever talk to her again because I don't want to fall in love with her. I don't want to get the feels for her. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, there are women I date in San Antonio, and they'll say, don't get the feels for me. I'm not getting the feels for you, but I like you. We have fun together. You make me laugh and giggle, and I like cooking dinner for a guy, and boy, is the sex good. Mm-hmm. But, when I get a real boyfriend who checks the boxes from a long-term perspective, he's the same religion as I am, he has the same priorities I have. Frankly, I was dating some younger women and they wanted to make a lot of babies with a guy who was more their age. Mm-hmm. So I was Mr. Right now, not Mr. Right. As long as we were on the same page with that, that was fine. Some of those relationships lasted months and months and months. Okay. Others, despite our best intentions, something comes up after our first night or two together and it just doesn't continue. It could be a friend zone thing on either of our parts. It could be a better option comes up. It could be, well, I didn't know this about you, and it's kind of a deal breaker, and that's deeply personal. But there are people who have good intentions, and they're honest, and they talk these things through together, and then it goes from there. The danger of any of these relationships, whether it's one night, 2 nights, 2 months, 6 months, a couple of years, is at least a minor miscommunication, which could possibly lead to a rather significant disconnect that these two people really weren't on the same page of what the expectations were, or even the sexpectations. And that's where it gets complicated, and that's where I really want you to dive in right now and tell these guys what your feelings are on all that, and maybe some practical steps.
Oh, I think that's brilliant. So for about 23 years, I've been talking about something called love a la carte. As a matter of fact, I told you before we went live that I'll be in Singapore doing a presentation, and it's called Love a la carte. And love a la carte is exactly what you're talking about. It is one of the great benefits of our current time period. It is that maybe at some point you want a relationship, but you're in the in-between stage. It is the negotiation of what you want and how you want it to be with that person that can be agreeable. Not everybody is somebody you're going to want to go the distance with. This is going to be a discussion, just as you said, Scott, between you and that person. How does this feel? What do we want? And it's a constant negotiation. Maybe it is friends with benefits. You want the girlfriend experience. She's up for that. And then one day she calls you and says, I've met somebody. And you say, it's been great fun. Thank you. But that is a design in and of itself. And sometimes, as you said, you get into the relationship and you think it's going to go one direction and it goes someplace else. So, of course, it's about communication. It's about knowing what you want in that time and space.
Yeah. And you know what you're talking about, for better or worse, which sounds like a marriage line. I'm not talking about making a commitment here. I'm talking about literally for better or worse.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about involves honesty?
Yeah.
Which people who, are going through a little bit of a dry spell kind of fudge on sometimes. Right?
Well, there are a lot, they tend to say that there are women who will say, oh, no, I'm cool with this. It's all good. I just want to date casually. Then 3 months later, they become crazy girl because they really didn't. And this is something I hammer on about, is that hope can be harmful. There is this thing in us, and, I'm a female, so I can say this about my people. We have this belief that the longer you know us, if you just really know us, you're really going to fall in love with us. It's this kind of inbuilt, thing. And it can really work against us because sometimes, girl, it is what it is. It just is what it is. So we have to understand that. Take a man verbally for what he says. If he says, I'm not looking for a relationship, that really isn't code for something else. I don't think he's like, avoidant, detached, whatever nonsense is going on
some
nowadays.
Buzzword gets applied to it.
Yeah, the psychologists who never make any money, they're like, hey, I got this brilliant idea. Why don't I write a book about how uncomfortable people are getting laid and they don't know what to do later? Oh, okay. That's what 100%.
Yeah. You know what? I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's such nonsense. I'm just like, oh my God, please. But, so you are right. Communication, and sometimes things change. And if you have somebody that you can communicate with, and that's what kind of goes back to what I said, do they have quality? Do you respect them? Can they be communicative? Are they honest? If they are able to be straightforward and clear and know themselves, what they want and what they're capable of, even if they get into uncomfortable terrain and go, Scott, damn, I thought you'd be just a part-time guy and I'm really falling for you. I've got an issue here.
Yes, she does.
I don't know what I'm going to do about it. So, I have to come clean and tell you, I don't think I can see you because I want more. But at least you've got that foundation. So I really hammer away at honesty conversations from the very get-go.
Yeah. I was going to bring up 3 ideas, and my heart is warmed by the simple fact that you already brought up the other 2, which means I must have been onto something. Indirectly, but let's go ahead and throw the guns on the table and give them a name. You talked about the communication, which is, kind of what honesty brings about. I am going to tell you the truth. That leads to honest communication. The other one is maturity. I think I want this, but I really don't. Oh my goodness. I don't even know. I can't even trust myself. I'm getting the feels and I never even expected that. A little bit of dating relationship maturity helps you keep your finger on the pulse of what's really going on here. And that in turn brings about a deeper level of honesty at the point where someone gets the feels and the other one doesn't. And you were talking about how a woman should have the balls, for lack of a better way to put it, to say to a guy, I can't keep seeing you because you don't want the relationship and I do. Mm-hmm. The long-term love leading to perhaps long-term partnership relationship. I would say the guy has to have the balls to say that too. And a lot of times if the guy's not getting the feels, it's easy to be really selfish when you're getting some and she's really cute naked. Mm-hmm. To keep her around and not really care enough about her or respect her enough to let her go find the guy she can have that relationship with. And again, that's mature. Now, the third leg of this stool that helps us stand up, of course, is confidence. Confidence is sexy, but once again, it comes back to, I need to hold on to this relationship because I don't think I could find another person. Or if I break up with this person, I'm going to have to start all over again, and that's going to take forever. Whereas if you're a person who's a chooser and has options, that's not as big a deal from a selfishness perspective as it could be. So you have this idea of honesty and communication from the beginning. If things start to shift, you need to remain honest. You need to be mature enough to sense and recognize where you stand as a couple, whether short-term or headed towards a long-term relationship. Make sure there's not a disconnect there. You're on the same page. And then there has to be enough confidence where you'll go ahead and have this conversation.
I love what you're saying, and I have a technique to bake this into the very beginning of meeting somebody.
Fantastic. Let's hear it.
Well, I tell my people, when you meet somebody and you're dating, it's all new. Nobody knows where it's going. Maybe you don't know yet. You don't know enough about the person to come and be the first one to lay the first piece of foundation down and say, look, I like honesty. I think it makes everything easier. So can we have an agreement? If you're not into me, you're not into it, you don't want it, you don't need to ghost me or whatever or hide. Just say, hey, it's not working for me. And if something comes up that you don't understand, instead of assuming, can you just ask me? That's cool for me. Does that work for you?
Beautiful.
Yeah, done.
I agree. What I tell guys is on first dates, decide whether you even like each other.
Yes,
don't load it down with a bunch of politics and religion and check boxing.
Yep.
Check boxing. Nice. I'm going to use that more often. We're not going to check box each other on, it's kind of like shadow boxing, only it's check boxing. And on the second date, unless you sense there's a mercy date going on here and she's just giving you a chance or you're just giving her another chance, maybe this waits till the third date. I don't know. But I don't know many people who go on third dates when they're not attracted to each other. So let's call it the third date. Say, hey, what are you looking for from your dating life right now? And let them talk.
Yeah.
And just chuck the stereotypes in the corner, okay, as much truth as may be behind them typically, and just listen to what you hear. Now, with women, you guys are going to have to read between the lines a little bit. She's not going to say, really, I just want to be a dirty little slut and get my pussy pounded constantly right now. She's not going to say that to you because she knows better. She may say something like, well, I just got out of a relationship and I don't really want to jump into anything else. So I kind of like what you and I have right now. Just keep it casual and great. Bingo. So what she wants is a short-term relationship. But she is a woman. She has needs. As long as you keep respecting her and getting to know her at a social level, the clothes will fall off and she'll be horny. You don't have to worry about that. The immaturity comes from men who are pushing for that before she feels comfortable. And what I keep telling these guys till I'm blue in the face is if you really like women and you really like this particular woman, if you like her and you give her that sense of comfort, she will get horny. And Susan, I have guys who will argue that point with me. Women don't get horny. Women don't like sex at all. And it's one of those Dunning-Kruger moments where I kind of have to show a little compassion and explain to these guys, well, yes, they are horny and they do like sex. You really just need to change your approach to things and this veil will be lifted. And a lot of times they don't want to receive that and they get all bitter, but the bitterness is what's keeping them from it. Don't want to digress too far, but again, it comes back down to those three elements, doesn't it? Proper communication and maturity to be able to sense and be okay with what you're hearing from the woman and decode it properly with the confidence so you don't feel like you're getting rejected when she says something a little more cryptic than, I'm horny, let's go back and have sex, because she doesn't want to be slut-shamed. I guess I'm overcomplicating this to some degree. It shouldn't be complicated, because if you two are going out and acting like adults, acknowledging that you're comfortable with each other and attracted, then really you two should be able to be transparent and talk about this, unless someone's still got some kind of confidence blockage or, some other thing that needs to be lifted there.
Well, I do like the fact that you're acknowledging that there's a difference between female eroticism and how men are built. For us, we need to feel that we like you. And in order to like you, we need to feel that you like us, genuinely us, like the inside us.
Exactly.
And if it's too apparent that you just want the physical aspect, we shut down. Doesn't mean we don't want sex. It means we don't want sex with you because of the approach.
Yep.
So women need to feel like you're truly interested. That's why players are so successful, because they just flood them with the light of, oh my God, you're so beautiful. And I can't believe I'm talking to you. And, oh, I'm going to break the 2-day rule. And I had to call you. And we fall for that stuff, hook, line, and sinker. And then it breaks our heart. So when you meet too many men like that are actually successful in getting you into bed,
you get a little jaded.
Yeah, you get jaded. Then you start to really shut down. And when the guy is honest and real, it is hard for some of these girls because they don't know how to modulate that garage door to their heart, like up, down, halfway. They're right. They just like put that thing on lockdown, lock the garage door. You can't open it up. They're like, nope, that's it. You've hurt me, so I'm going to use you. And then you start the whole thing again.
I've never heard a female analogy in my entire life that involves a garage. So bravo.
I'm in a house right now. I mean, I don't drive a car for like 40 years of my life. And then I come here for a couple of months to my home and then I drive a car. So yeah, I've got the garage door thing. So, and I got a huge garage door. So it's for a double car. So it takes forever to go up and takes forever to go down. And sometimes women just get hurt. The real guy who is a good guy, I know sometimes you guys feel like you're losing, and please, please don't lose hope. Again, remember, you're looking for a woman, if you want a long-term relationship or even a good love affair, you are looking for a woman that recognizes that and does not abuse it, who recognizes it and values it. That's your safety net.
Which involves some maturity on her part.
Yes, self-reflection, self-awareness, of course.
Yeah. Last thing I want to talk about before we close this podcast, and this has been a great conversation, is something that guys are going to come at me with torches and pitchforks about unless I throw it on the table. Ready? Exclusivity. We are horrified. We're going to pick up a chick at a bar, bang her, and she's going to think, well, now you're my boyfriend. Put a ring on it. Okay. And there are also these guys who will start stringing along a couple chicky babes and tell them they're the only one because they think they have to tell her that or else they're all going to leave. And then they become either roped in to a chick's agenda and feel like they've been had, or they're being dishonest to women and they're being liars. And I just don't think it's necessary to have to put ourselves through all that drama. I think we can be honest and forthright. And it all starts with that second or third date conversation of what are you looking for from your dating life? So in your words, these guys have heard from me before, Susan, in your frame of mind, how do you balance that with the idea of a one-night stand versus a short to medium term friends with benefits situation? I mean, certainly longer term than a one-night stand, versus being full on relationship material. You may be the one. You got to be honest about the exclusivity factor there. And I think a lot of guys in particular are afraid that if they say to a woman, I'm not interested in an exclusive relationship right now, the woman's just going to pull up the stakes and run, regardless of what the situation is. And I know for a fact a lot of women are perfectly okay with that. They just don't want the gory details. And they may be seeing another guy or two. And, again, it just seems like it comes down to honesty. What say you?
Yeah. Okay. You know what? You gave me so many points of conversation. One, just to protect yourself, get her consent, please, for yourself. I don't care if you have to get it in a text message, you record it, whatever. That's number one.
Of course.
Two, after you've had sex or during sex, at the very end, if you think you like her, you may want to say to her, do you want to do this again? I'd like to see you. Now, there are some people that are going to have sex with you right away, and that's kind of clear as to what it is. But here's the thing. I can't give you the answer, and you don't know either.
Boom.
We have to test the waters. You don't know first presentations, first couple of dates. You have to keep talking the whole way. You might think you want a short-term relationship, but you find you want a long-term relationship. So in the shift between, are we going to be casually dating, and is she going to, lock down the exclusive conversation? You could say, if you think you might be interested, I suggest a trial run, because if you want to know if you really like this girl, you need to close off everybody else, and so does she. And I would negotiate. I'm all about agreements and negotiations. Nowadays, rules don't even work, so you're just working on the fly. I'd really like to see what we have here. And in order to do so, we need to focus on each other. How do you feel about that? Give it a month, keep talking, see how we feel, see how this goes forward.
Yeah, I love the idea of continued conversation.
Absolutely, because you don't know.
Because that's tricky.
Well, listen, it is tricky. You also have to be honest from the very beginning as to what you know you can do now, but you may want later.
Yes. I think that's very well said. The one cherry I would put on the top of that sundae is if you are on a first date with a woman and she gets super frisky with you and it leads to just wanton, wild, riotous sex.
Mm-hmm.
If she comes down from that mountaintop with you and goes, great, now we're exclusive and you're my boyfriend, I would argue you've been ambushed if you're a guy.
Yeah, that's not
she
even.
has to be an adult about what just happened.
No. That's not even. That would be, I'm sorry you felt that way. There was no previous discussion. Obviously, I assumed that you wanted all this. I'm sorry. And also, guys, don't be greedy. If you've got a good girl there and she really wants to get married and have babies in the next year, don't bother to try and seduce her. Please don't be greedy. There are enough gals that'll be up for playtime with you. Just walk away. Just walk away and get one that's not going to give you a headache and no boiled bunny at the end of the day, right?
Boiled bunny.
Yes. Remember Fatal Attraction?
Oh, yeah.
I know guys won't know that. Just watch the Michael Douglas film with Glenn Close.
I mean, that reference, man, I'm in awe of that reference. It's so spot on.
If you get somebody that does all that, you got a little cray-cray to begin with. So to avoid getting yourself in an unbelievable emotional situation with somebody who is not hinged, you just try to be very clear about what things are and what they're not from the very beginning.
Her name is Susan Winter, dating coach extraordinaire. You already know she's confident, she's mature, and she knows how to be honest, which is what we love around here. It's kind of like the trifecta for dating in general, isn't it?
Yep.
Susan Winter's website you can reach by going to www.mountaintoppodcast.com/Susan Winter. Use her whole name this time, guys. SUSANWINTER, because we're going to send you to a whole new place this time. And I think you've been on 3 times or more now. So this is kind of exciting. Yeah. We're going to send you to something called dating games. Susan, what's that all about?
I have a collection. You know, when you have like 960 some videos and people say, how do you know if they've got mixed signals? How do I know if they're pulling away? How do I know if they're real? Nobody wants to file through that stuff. So I have this brilliant company that updates everything that I do. It's driven by AI. When you buy the dating games guide, I believe the price is like $49 or something. You get access to every single video that I've done that will start at the exact point that you want to discuss. You enter a keyword or you just say it. And it's also a free app in your pocket, and it's constantly being updated. So it's not like static. And there are probably 26 hours worth of material in there, but it drives you to the exact point of the exact conversation that you need. So if you ever get confused, don't know what's going on, or you get them doing something and you don't know how to play your end of it, and you'd like to have a better counter move, this will help you.
Not only am I happy to send guys to that particular site when they go to mountaintoppodcast.com/Susan Winter, with your permission, I'm going to hijack you a little and ask these guys to write me at scott@mountaintoppodcast.com if they would like a similar service from me. Because that's just amazing.
It is great because it's already the material you have, but do you know how many emails I get asking me for exactly something I've already covered? You know,
Yes.
People don't read articles. I know. And do you know how long it takes me to look that up, open up my computer, look up the exact URL, mail it back to them. And this way, it's in your pocket. It's on your phone. You just open it up. You say the word like playing games. Boom, 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 boom.
So like for $49, you get to take this encyclopedic amount of voluminous but wonderful content that you or I respectively have produced and just pinpoint exactly what it is you need at the right place at the right time. And you may not even know how to describe it effectively. The AI does it for you.
It's perfect because you're going to exactly what you need to know. You don't have to rifle through. Like, we all get confused. We go onto YouTube or they go to your podcast, they listen to something, they don't know what point it is, then they get to something else, then you've got a pop-up or you get confused and you get a commercial. So this goes right to it. Yeah, no commercials are in it. So it's really well done.
That's important. Yeah, that's good stuff. I'm going to look into that also. mountaintoppodcast.com/Susan Winter. As always, Susan, what a wonderful, meaningful, and I think even actionable conversation we've had today. And, you know, I always invite you back and you always say yes. So I'm looking forward to the next conversation.
Thank you, Scott. My very best to your guys out there.
Yeah, and have fun in Singapore.
Thank you.
Yeah. Gentlemen, mountaintoppodcast.com is the place to be if you want to download free books. Check in on the show notes, not only for this show, but quite literally every show we've ever done. Check out the new audios, Women in AI, as well as Yes And, which is my newest material on how to approach women post-COVID in this area where everybody seems so divided and maybe a little aloof. This helps you plow right through that and get to the good stuff. Those items and others are all there for you at mountaintoppodcast.com. Listen, gentlemen, we're in 2024 here. And some of you have still not talked to me on the phone about how to get the right woman or women in your life. And we've talked about some of the nuances of that in this very episode. But listen, it's all about you, your specific needs, and what your specific goals are. Talk to me for free for 25, 30 minutes by getting on my calendar at mountaintoppodcast.com. While you're there, visit Jocko Willink's company, Origin in Maine, the Hero Soap guys, and the Keyport. And when you get anything from our three fine sponsors, please use the coupon code MOUNTAIN10 at checkout for 10% off. It's all there for you and more at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.